Hello, welcome back. I'm James, and this is No Topic. So for today's video, I'm going to be reviewing, talking about Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Now this video will contain spoilers. I saw the film just 2 days ago from now, I believe. I don't know, time is just, it's going fast. So I guess we'll start with my initial thoughts on the film. I enjoyed it quite a bit. It was definitely better than the first one. In things it executed, there's obviously still its problems, but it did have its moments as well, so I won't, focus too much on one or the other. It was just a fun sort of film that you could just watch, and it's definitely very important for the post-credit scene or the mid-credit scene. So yeah. So starting with the pros on the film, I started with my first point I wanted to talk about was it goes sort of all the way with its craziness or its silliness and its weirdness, and personally that was a pro to me. I really enjoyed that aspect of it, because I felt like in the first film they tried so much to sort of balance a serious tone and this sort of silly comedic tone, and it just didn't work for me personally. That's one of my gripes with the first movie. Whereas in this movie, I think they just decided to go all in with the sort of weirdness and the silliness of Venom and Eddie's relationship especially, and sort of the things they get up to and stuff. Like, they just went all the way with that, and I appreciate that more for this film, and I think it worked very well. It worked very much for the humour and the sort of tone of the film, where it did still have its serious moments, but they were worked in a lot better than in the first movie. Now, my second point is on Cletus and Carnage themselves, obviously the main villains of the film. So I will start with Carnage because, well, he's in the name of the film. Carnage was a very cool and intimidating villain, just from aesthetics alone. His voice was, I guess, similar to Venom's, but had more of a creepier, deeper tone to it that sort of matched a more villainous type character. And yeah, I think just for the rating it got, because I can understand they didn't want to go full gore with it, because it's not a horror film or whatever, it's still just this comic book action movie film, and I know for the credit scene they didn't want to put that sort of level of gore in it because they wanted more viewership, but I think for what they wanted to do, I guess they pushed it as far as they could, and I think, yeah, you know what, they did do a good job, because that was one thing I was concerned going into this movie was Cletus Cassidy's character in the comics and in this film is a serial killer, and obviously when he gets a symbiote he's supposed to be this unstoppable, scary carnage of a force, and he's supposed to be going on these like really disgusting and like gory killing sprees. I know it's quite dark in the comics as well, and it should be because it's just how it is, but I think for the film they did the best they could, and they did push limits with certain things where it was, Cassidy was breaking Eddie's bones and stuff when he didn't have Venom. The detective was getting his like eyes gouged out, and then just subtle things like not the shop owner, but the guy working at the gas station, like just Cassidy, just hearing him stomping his head in, like that sort of brings a more realism to it. That sort of kill was like, okay, that's probably what a serial killer might do when he escapes prison. But yeah, they were definitely then together an intimidating powerhouse of like villains, with that weakness of, because Shriek, obviously, I mean, I'll get into this in another point, but because I'm trying to structure this as best as I can, but obviously it's just like, there's a certain dynamic that I want to talk about, but yeah, I think just as a whole, they were a lot better villains than, obviously, Carlton Drake and Riot in the first movie, because I just felt there was nothing really written about Riot especially, whereas Carnage was a bit better established, but he still was missing a bit of writing. I feel like he could have done with a bit more, but besides that, they were, like I said, for the bloody 7th time, great villains, very good villains, for what the film was anyway. Now, of course, building from that, I want to say another pro of the film I feel was the final battle in the church cathedral sort of setting, and sort of it was just a good fight scene. It was well structured. I feel like it had good build up and good action sequences, and it was definitely easier to track who was who during the fight. Again, another con of the first movie. You had these two dark coloured, characters fighting each other in a dark area at night. Like, it was hard to keep track of who was who. Whereas obviously Carnage is red and he's more of a slimmer build, and Venom is more bulky and his black colour. It meant you spent less time trying to keep tabs on who was who, and you spent more time just enjoying what you were seeing. So I really liked that part of it. But yeah, the whole fight was really cool. Sort of seeing Carnage's uniqueness of like how he can get punched straight through him, because him and Cletus aren't, they're kind of one of the same, not like how Eddie is in Venom, because Carnage is more of a blood infused from Venom, and Eddie's sort of blood, so that was cool. And of course, it being set in the cathedral and certain parts of the fight, it definitely alluded to and referenced other Spider-Man sequences. There was the scene where Venom was covered in the rubble and realizes, okay, we can do this, or we should fight this and fight this threat, and he pushes the rubble off him. That really reminded me of Spider-Man Homecoming, which obviously Peter Parker does when he realizes he doesn't need he is capable of doing this himself and all that. So I really enjoyed that. There was, I think, the most obvious one when Anne was falling. Clearly, I feel like a reference, because it was more in the clock tower sort of thing. It was a reference to Amazing Spider-Man 2, with obviously Spider-Man and Gwen Stacy falling. But the only difference is Anne actually got caught and didn't die. And the third sort of the main reference I felt like was just the whole fight taking place in a church. Spider-Man 3, this is where Peter Parker got rid of the symbiote and it latched onto Eddie Brock. Now I feel like this was just a bit of a reference to that. Obviously, Eddie having Venom in this fight, Peter Parker not existing in this universe, or not as far as we know, or maybe he does, but not Spider-Man, but, I thought it was just a nice little nod to that. And how could I not say, I think the biggest pro of them all, that post-credit scene was just, it's groundbreaking. It's very important post-credit scene. It makes this film very important, and it changes quite a lot for the franchise, and especially the character of Venom. Like, it was just mental. I remember seeing it and just, wow, just, it sucks that here in the UK we got the film 2 weeks later, because unfortunately I did see it leaked by accident, but man, it was so good to see it in the cinema. It was such a good post-credit scene. Obviously now Eddie and Venom sort of being in this hotel room, and then Venom alluding to, I'll teach you more about my kind, which then, like, by coincidence happens to coincide with what I believe is Doctor Strange's spell, because there's a glowing orange light outside, and then all of a sudden Eddie and Venom are both transferred to the MCU, clearly, because now in the hotel room on the TV is James Jonah Jameson reporting on obviously what we know from Far From Home's post-credit scene, and the main plot for No Way Home, with Peter Parker having his identity revealed. And so Venom and Eddie are in the MCU now. I feel like it won't be for long, and I feel like they can't be villains or like in it, but I would like to do another video about this, just speculating what they might do with this. But yeah, I'm very excited. I can't believe they actually put that in. But I guess we knew we would get Venom versus Spider-Man, or just an interaction at some point, but man, what a mid-credit scene that was. Okay, so on to the cons of the movie, in my opinion. I think the main one, or at least one of the points, was, for me, Shriek's character was just there. I don't think she was that well established for the most part, and especially the fact that they established her to be some sort of mutant or whatever, with this sonic power, like, the sonic shockwaves that come from her mouth, to do with sound. And then obviously you have her as a love interest to Cletus, who is the host to Carnage, and obviously the symbiotes are weak to sound. Like, I just felt like there was a good dynamic they could have built upon there. Like, they kind of touched on it with Carnage is like, look, if she screams again, I will kill her. But like, they could have done more of it. I felt like, you know, it's a very unique thing. You have this host of the symbiote who's in love with this character whose power contains the weakness of the symbiote. Like, I felt like there was something very interesting there that you could have delved upon, but they chose not to, or they just didn't. I don't know why. And then they kind of just split them apart for the battle. Like, again, they kind of touched on it, but I wish they had more of an internal thing, and it was more just then like, oh, just shut up, and then she does shut up. Like, you know, I guess it does happen towards the end, but like, Carnage is just like, okay, I'm going to kill her now, but still, just, for me personally, I just wish there was something more there. I think you had an interesting dynamic you could have built upon, but, you know, the film turned out how it turned out, and, you know, well, it's too late to do that now. Another thing I didn't really like was that they just, in this film, especially towards the end, they just turned Anne into a, you know, typical damsel in distress, where she didn't really do anything. She was captured just to motivate sort of Eddie and Venom to go to the thing, you know, to fight Carnage and Cletus. But, you know, like, obviously they did go just to take him out, like, to defeat them as well. But just, I don't know, I just wish they hadn't done that with Anne. It was just wasted for her character again. Especially from the first film, you did establish, like, okay, they had this whole line where she's like, oh, I can fight dirty, and then just for her to do nothing. But then it was clearly just so, like, Dan could step in, and then, you know, it'd lead to, like, Venom and Eddie having respect for Dan. But I don't know, I wish Anne had more stuff to do. Like, I know she does help Eddie a bit, but again, I think I wish she helped out in the final battle as well, and wasn't just reduced to a simple damsel in distress. I will say that was a big thing for me. Again, that's why I think I did say Shriek's point was the main one. I just felt quite a few characters just felt like they were there and they didn't really do anything. I feel like Dan didn't really do anything towards the end. Anne did stuff and then didn't do anything towards the end. Like, that was kind of reversed. And then again, I said about Shriek, or Frances or whatever her name was. Like, she just wasn't doing anything for me, really. And then there was this Detective Mulligan, who, to me as well, wasn't really doing anything. He was just kind of just there just to set up Toxin, which, while I'm on that subject, I guess I'll talk about that. I won't say it's necessarily a con, but, you know, I wasn't expecting it. I was definitely surprised, but I guess I shouldn't have been. But yeah, so they've set up for Mulligan to become Toxin in Venom 3, I assume. So I'm intrigued to see that, and obviously in the comics, Toxin is the offspring of Carnage, and then obviously Carnage is the offspring of Venom, so I guess I shouldn't have been surprised. But yeah, I just felt his character didn't really do anything, and yes, I know he was like a detective, but like, in a film where like you're gonna turn Eddie and Venom into the detective kind of characters, he was kind of just pointless, and again, just there, clearly just to set up Toxin. So yeah, that was kind of a shame, but that's how the film went. Okay, so just to go through our last few points, this is just some other points that I just wanted to fit in here. So I will say, I personally as well didn't like how Venom and Eddie sort of were falling out again. I don't mind them arguing, because I think that's a good, fun dynamic to watch, because it makes sense, but I don't like how they just split apart again, or like split apart and weren't really together for quite a while. Like, you kind of, you know, did that in the first one. I feel like what you should have done in this one was, you know, you already had them falling out. Yes, have these little fallouts and stuff, because again, it's fun to watch. It makes sense for the characters, but I wish they were, you know, actually doing something, and it wasn't just Eddie being like, no, I'm not going to do something. Venom's like, we should be, you know, taking out bad guys. Like, I don't understand how after the events of the first one, Eddie's just like, yeah, nah, we're not, we, you know, we saved the day once, we saved the world, whatever, we're not gonna do that again. Like, I don't know, I wish they did something. I wish they were, you know, maybe there was just like, it would have been fun to have like a montage of them handling crime and stuff, just in, this like funny buddy cop duo kind of thing. But you know, that's how it went. It unfortunately didn't go that way. So when they handle these characters again, I just hope they don't do something like that again, because it will feel very repetitive at this point, or at that point. But yeah. And obviously it's a Marvel film, and even after the legendary Stan Lee's passing, I still loved that there was a Stan Lee cameo in this movie, and it was in the shop, it was on a magazine, and I think from what I remember, yeah, like Venom adjusts the paper as well, like I think it was leaning forward and he taps it back up. Yeah, I just, it's still nice that we're honouring him as we should, despite his passing. Like I'm happy that they're still finding ways to put him into the films, and just having him on like a front cover of the things. It was just really nice to see, because obviously he was in the first one. But yeah, that was just, obviously you got to just talk about a Stan Lee cameo. So yeah, that was nice. My second to last point on the movie was that, it was funny. I personally, I wasn't laughing out loud, but I do have, because I have a very weird sense of humour where only certain things make me laugh out loud. But it was funny, and I went to see it with my friends, and I heard them all laughing, and there was other people in the cinema laughing. Like, it was funny. And again, I think that's due to them just buying more into this weirdness and silliness and wackiness of these characters, and just, Venom was definitely more funny with certain things he was saying. There's a certain part at the end where he drops the F-bomb, but it's just funny in the context of what goes on. But yeah, no, I really thought it was funny, much funnier than the first one. There's definitely some parts where I'm like, they're trying to be funny, but I didn't find it funny, but that's okay, I guess. But, I keep repeating the same points, but you get the idea. I'm repeating myself, but, yeah, the film was funny, and for that I would recommend it. But I'll get into that towards the end of recommending this film. And I guess we'll just go to my final point, which kind of summarizes just, I think this film was better than the first one. By, I wouldn't say like a lot, but it definitely was better. It had a much more interesting villain, or villains. Much better established. Still some weird writing choices with characters and stuff, which again, I knew going into this there would be problems. It was definitely not going to be perfect. It's just the nature of this kind of film. But yeah, like, I just think the first one just struggled so well. It struggled so much with trying to balance a serious and funny tone, and it just didn't work. And obviously the first one was prone to it was trying to set up this whole world and all this, and obviously it just fell victim to that. But yeah, so I guess just going into an overall thing now, I really enjoyed it. Again, like I said, and obviously all the pros and cons you've heard of my opinions of the film. So yeah, but would I recommend this film? Yeah, sure. I mean, for the post-credit scene, mid-credit scene, again, whatever. Yes, definitely for that, especially if you're an MCU fan, but you weren't considering watching this film or the previous one. I think just so you can keep up with certain things, you should watch this film. I think it's definitely, from what I saw before seeing the film, I saw that people who liked the first one were going to like this one, and if you didn't like the first one, you wouldn't like this one. And I would definitely agree with that point. Again, I think if you just couldn't get into it in the first one, this might not be for you. But everyone's got their own opinions and stuff. So, on that topic, let me know your opinions if you've seen the movie down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well. Hopefully you enjoyed this review. Still getting used to sort of formatting these things. Again, I know it wasn't perfect. But I'm trying to get better. I will get better. So just hopefully stick with me and do subscribe to see me improve over time, because I really enjoy talking about this stuff, and it's just I'm clearly just needing to find that structure, and once I do it, I'll be fine. But also one thing you realise by now, I do waffle. So with that, I'll end the video here. I've been James, this has been Nerd Topic. I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.